Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Gallery. My name is Nuke, and this is Craft of the Cards. This is a show primarily focused on grading the art of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, examining the aesthetics of their art, the card's name, and how it relates to the effect. Last time, we finished off with the Elemental Heroes proper, so this episode is more of an addendum to the previous one, looking at a sub-archetype in a way that's closely related to them, the Masked Heroes. They're really not enough to make an episode on their own about, so here's Elemental Heroes Part 3 out of 2, Masked Heroes. Based on Common Rider heroes, they're almost all fusion monsters, with some appropriate spell and trap support, mostly relating to the Mask Change cards. They're an interesting bunch and start off quite nicely, in fact, with Masked Hero Blast. It's a good card to start with, being an obvious homage to the original Common Rider with a green and black bodysuit along with a red scarf. I really like this card art-wise. It looks sleek and well-designed with a good ratio of green to black, neither color overpowering the other while still working very well as natural contrasts. The pose is kind of weird, but I chalk that up to tokusatsu conventions more than anything else. They kind of had to be more dynamical with those costumes on. The background for this card is actually amazing though, with the wind kicking up around him and the lightning coursing through the rest of the card. The effect is decent, with it blasting a spell and trap from the field, fitting with its wind attribute, with its precedent for back row hate. It's a good card and gets a solid 7 out of 10. While I wish the rest of the effect could have been more thematic, it has really good art with a nice background that places it firmly in that 7 out of 10. Masked Hero Goka is their next card and not nearly as inspired. Its inspiration probably comes the most from Kamen Rider Agato's burning form with a flare helmet and the red coloration. The biggest issue for me though is the card is the inclusion of white on the pectorals, at least on the foreground on the monster itself. It breaks up the card too much and should have been red instead. The pauldrons are ridiculous, no two ways about it. They look kinda dumb, but it's tokusatsu, so I don't really knock it for that. I do like that they put the character for fire on his belt though, it's quite a nice touch. The background is really boring though, it makes the card seem so very flat compared to Masked Hero Blast. The difference is night and day between them, because you can just see the depth in Blast, which make it seem more interesting. The effect is slightly strange as well though, gaining power from the graveyard for some reason. In the end, it gets a 6 out of 10. It's a good design, but the rest of the elements are average at best. The background is fine enough, and the effect is somewhat subpar, but nothing really knocks it down to average or even below average. The design does recoup a lot of it for me. Masked Hero Darklaw is gorgeous. The design is amazing, with the wolf's head clearly delineated by the yellow stripe across it, which helps it to stand out wonderfully, while the pose is animalistic with Darklaw hunched over and snarling. It sets him apart so well from all the other cards, which take more precise poses, all of which are more measured and clean in how they act. The costume is edgier as well, with the spikes running down the arms and thighs, and the background is simply gorgeous. Flames bursting all around him, and the randomness of how it's drawn, and the fact that it's purple tinged and shooting off in all directions help it to seem so much more chaotic. The effect is excellent as well, banishing cards into the Netherrealm as appropriate for a dark attribute monster. This is an extremely good card and gets an 8 out of 10. The card looks excellent. It has good effects and good design with a really cool background that just everything ties together so wonderfully. Looking at least somewhat inspired by Kamen Rider Agato's Storm form, we have Masked Hero Vapor. It looks pretty good, the blue and red work decently well together, though I'm not so much of a fan of the yellow. It would work better on a card that had a darker shade of blue, as it contrasts more and looks cleaner generally speaking. That affects the background more so than the card itself though. Like Goka, it has a symbol on the waist, this time being the symbol for water. I do like the card's pose, seeming to fly up to us on a spout of water. It looks really dynamic and makes it seem much more lithe than a lot of the other cards, the relative slimness of the armor not even being set off by anything with Blast in his scarf. The background is disappointing though, the yellow streaks through the water not really doing much for me. The effect is really good though, and the protection effect making sense given that this card is apparently vaporous in nature. It's a decent card, so it gets a 6 out of 10. It has a good effect, good art, despite a disappointing background, so it's above average. Masked Hero Koga is their next card, and it is really nice. It's got a pretty interesting design, the spikes on its hand giving it an interesting design element. The entire card is designed around that sleekness as well, foregoing the large pauldrons of a card like Goka. The color scheme is really nice. The gray color they use for the secondary color works really well against the gold, and I love how they pose the card. Legs together and arms outstretched. It helps to emphasize the relative slimness of the card by reducing its profile while showing off the main elements, which are the spikes. The visual elements are quite nice as well, emphasizing the sharpness of the spikes that show off their trails as they dart around, seeming to cut the air in twain. The background itself is fairly standard and quite boring, having the rays of light emanating from the head. It does emphasize the mask though, which is a small mercy as it looks pretty good. The effect is somewhat lackluster though, with it merely being somewhat battle-oriented. It makes sense given the card's seeming aggressiveness with spikes, but could have been more. It gets a 7 out of 10 though. It is a really good card. It has a lovely design, good visual effects, and a decent background, despite a lackluster effect, but that visual design is so well done that it pushes it into that 7 out of 10 category. Elemental Hero Acid is their next card, drawing the most influence from Kamen Rider Ibuki, the helmet, and the gun all showing influence from that particular rider. The colors work really well this time. The dark blue and black work well together, showing off the acidic and poisonous elements of the card. The red and gold emblem on his chest is good though. It does help to break up the card, but the fact that it's a very muted red helps to make it seem more like a part of the card. Too bright of a color would have stood out too much and clashed with the overall thing that this is a dark, poisonous monster. It looks good, and the effect is really nice as well, nuking back row, dissolving the cards and then causing damage to the opponent. It's a good card. It gets an 8 out of 10. It's got a good effect, a nice theme, and really well done colors and designs, though I would have appreciated a slightly more dynamism to even elevate it higher to that 9 and 10 out of 10 category. Masked Hero Divine Wind is interesting when you look at the Japanese translation, mostly because Divine Wind in Japan translates out to that. Yeah. In any case, the card is good. It has an aggressive pose coming right out the card. The clawed hand with a red gem crackling with energy is really nice, and it's held in such a way as to attract attention once you move past the head. The cape is nice as well, drawing a lot of attention to the card's head as well to help to lend it a sense of motion. The colors are really good this time. The green and white work very well off of each other to create a nice palette for the card as a whole. The effect is once again quite good, the battle-oriented effect matching well with the aggressive name and art. In the end, it gets another 8 out of 10. It's a really nice design with good colors, nice elements, and a good effect. Masked Hero Anki is another good card. Keeping the theme of dark masked heroes being more animalistic, it has clawed hands and two-toed feet, with spikes tipping them both to help lend a more animalistic look. Visually, it's based off of Kamen Rider Hibiki, especially in terms of how its mask is designed. The color scheme works very well this time. The black, gold, and dark red all blend together well, and the white around the pectorals and abs help to give the card a bit of visual flair. The background is really good, the light helping to show off the card, especially as a callback to mask change, with this supports quite nicely with the effect. It's a really nice touch that helps to tie the effect with the art very well, so it actually gets a 9 out of 10. It's a really good card in general, so it gets a really nice grade, especially in terms of how its effect matches so well with certain elements in the art. Masked Hero Diane is their directly most powerful fusion monster and is based on Kamen Rider Femme. The card looks really good, the steel gray of the armor matching well with the dark blue of the cape and ruffles. The boot plate's a bit much and seems kind of disconnected with the rest of the armor. It seems like a visual callback to Elemental Hero Blazeman, which I really didn't like. The background is decent enough and the effect is strained, the special summoning effect not really having a relation to the card itself. It gets a 5 out of 10. While the art and background are good, the lack of a thematic effect brings it down somewhat. Contrast Hero Chaos is their last card and it looks amazing. I love so many elements about this card. The design drawing inspiration from Kamen Rider Double when in its fan Joker state. I love how the card is done to match the name, divided right down the middle in terms of art, with the black side giving off a menacing red aura, with the white side a blue one. The use of two diametrically opposed colors works well here, and the background being lighter on the dark side and darker on the light side to help the card stand out more is a really nice touch. I love this type of design concept in the first place, it being one of my big Yu-Gi-Oh loves when it comes to art. That they keep on doing this, and the card is a great example of this. The effect is excellent as well, being a way to banish and negate, which fits the light typing. It's a great card and gets a 10 out of 10. It's excellent in all respects. Mask Charge is a decent enough card with some decent art and a nice effect. The link between the name and the card is a bit strange though. I don't really see how this charges the masks in any way. The link between the art and effect though is quite good. The card depicting a young man looking at a case with a mask and utility belt in it, and the card getting you a material and the means to get out a masked hero. It's a decent enough card that it gets a 5 out of 10. While the thematic link would normally push it to the verge of being a 6 out of 10, the lack of a true link between the name and effect does bring it down a bit, despite the relatively good art. Form change is exactly what you'd expect from a card like it. It shows a glowing figure transforming into masked hero Darklaw as light bursts in the background. It's fine enough and doesn't really do much, but it's functional and it's nice seeing Darklaw's armor. It fits well with the overall Kamen Rider aesthetic though, as various riders changed form in the past, though I doubt with such a magical girl-inspired scene playing out. The effect works very well with this and links very well, so it gets a 5 out of 10. It is perfectly average. It's got a decent enough effect, a decent background, and an effect that does match very well with the name and art, so it's perfectly average. Mask Change is one of their big cards in terms of playability, and it works really well as a art piece. The art depicts masked hero Inferno, as far as I know confined only to the manga, getting his face replaced, not by Botox, but assumedly with a different mask to make him a different hero, and matches well with the effect, and I love the restriction that it has to be the same attribute, playing into their ties with the elemental heroes and their own attribute-based nature, showing that it's just the mask that's changing which gives them powers, not their fundamental being in terms of typing. The background is quite strange though, with the hero's head seeming to represent the sun as it crests over some water or cloud. It works somewhat given the fact that a lot of superheroes have flight, but it's kinda weird nonetheless. It's a really nice card that gets a 7 out of 10. It's good art in general, and a really nice effect that ties well with the name means that it gets that 7 out of 10. Mask Change 2 is a card that once again brings back the Uneyed Abomination from the UA video. I swear, why do these guys always have nothing under that fringe of hair? It's weird that they refuse to draw them with eyes, but in any case, it's a good card and shows him in armor with a plethora of masks surrounding him. From left to right, they are Diane, Vapor, Koga, Divine Wind, and assumedly at the back, Darklaw and Goka to make one from each attribute. Meaning that everyone is represented aside from Divine Beast, which makes a lot of sense given this card, which basically allows you to rank up your fusions into stronger monsters. It's a pretty good card overall. The background is decent enough, I suppose, with it not being terrible, but not being particularly inspiring. The art itself is good, because it seems to indicate the versatility that you get out of this card, and the effect matches very well with the name, being a upgraded version of Mask Change. So in the end, it gets a 7 out of 10 for all the reasons I listed above. Good art, thematic effect, and decent background. While this last card isn't really masked hero support, it is a card I forgot to put on the last video, so very much thanks to user and longtime fan SDSD for pointing out that I forgot to put it in the last one. So that was a small mistake, but in any case, Elemental Recharge is... it's decent. I'm not really sure what else you really want from me. The art looks decent. It depicts Elemental Hero Burstinatrix in a back-to-tank looking thing with 2 electric probes shocking her. There is a slight issue though, and that is that there's a weird disconnect between certain elements of the card. While the name and art make sense together because it's showing a recharge via shocking, the name and effect work well together because it's recharging your life point. I don't really see a link between the effect and the art, because I don't really see how shocking her is supposed to help her regenerate in any way, though maybe this is actually some sort of back to tank and this is just giving it energy to work. In any case, it's a decent enough card. It gets a 5 out of 10. There's nothing really particularly special about the card, though I do like that there's apparently this massive wall of matrix code behind her that's feeding into this weird technological room she's in. It is very typically GX, so yeah, it gets a 5 out of 10. Nothing particularly special, nothing particularly horrible. In the end though, masked heroes are an entertaining and high-quality sub-archetype of heroes, which draws on the interesting tradition of Japanese superheroes with Super Sentai and Kamen Rider-esque designs. I love how they work with the heroes, the East and West, combining to a really cool fusion of archetypes. In the end, these guys get a 7 out of 10 overall as an archetype. They're really good. They have excellent designs and interesting ways that they play off each other and their effects interact, and in the end, they combine really well with elemental heroes as well, making them an excellent sub-archetype. The card of the archetype for me, though, is quite obviously Contrast Hero Chaos. It is an excellent card overall. It looks so good and has so many interesting elements that play off that theme of contrast so perfectly. In the end, this is an excellent, excellent archetype overall, and I'm glad I was able to review it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this little mini interlude. I'll promise I'll have the latest full Craft of the Cards episode up by the end of the month. It should be Allies of Justice this time, because as Superfan SDSD requested, and what I'd been wanting to do for a while, I do kind of want to rip into an archetype, and Ally of Justice is a big one, because they don't really have a solid theme and even art style among a lot of those cards, so expect that one to be more vitriolic. So in any case, thank you all very much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to get updates on all my future videos. So without further ado, this is Nuke, signing out.